Do you mind going into the story about your first pregnancy way back? Do you mind talking about that? Are you able to talk about the 93
Mm,
scenario?
sure. I'm finally now, 30 some years later, writing about it. So there's a whole section in the book where I address that because I'm addressing that period of my life and all that. Um, sure. Just as far as like the
Man, just
backstory or
just the backstory. And I mean, I think understanding what happened and how you handled it are significant things to look at and learn from.
okay. Uh, well, I was living in the Reseda area, teaching drum lessons. It was with Nelson at the time, and a student called to say that she wanted to take lessons because she's kind of a part-time drummer, but was going to be doing some track dates. She was a singer and a songwriter. Actually, had a record deal at the time with like an all-female band, but needed to work on her drumming chops. So she came out for a lesson, and that is when I met, or how I met, Sherry Foreman. And it was just one of those sort of destined, you know, the the rare, merging of spirits, if you will.
Yeah.
And so um, I think at the time she was just getting over a relationship, and I was just about to go out and record the new Nelson record out of town. But the bottom line is, once I got back to LA, we were just on a karmic collision course, man. Just the relationship moved quickly. I don't think her or I were really looking for a relationship, uh, but it just everything. The relationship developed very quickly. So just several months later, she goes home to Houston with me for Christmas. And you got to understand, like, I've been like the notorious bachelor guy. So anybody who knew me was like going like, what the hell's going on? He brought a girl home for Christmas to Houston. It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In January,
The
we
boys
moved.
growing up.
Yeah, exactly. So then we move in together in January because just it was kind of circumstantial, but so just everything was just flying faster than we could imagine. And then in late January of '93, we found out she was pregnant. That was also something that we hadn't counted on.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, then and always, to be honest, I would never consider myself a kid person. I never had a desire to be a father. But as soon as that happened, of course, now you have to, get your head together and gear up and whatnot. So uh, it was a chaotic time. Bottom line was we had to move out of the place we were at, so we wound up moving in temporarily with the Nelson brothers in Toluca Lake.
Okay.
And we were just kind of managing. We were working on the new Nelson record. It was taking a while. They were trying to get some mixes done, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a difficult time financially and logistically. Plus, we had a kid on the way and all that. And then just in the middle of it all, on one evening, March 30th, 1993, we both left the house about 8:45. We had some errands to run. We were going to meet back at the house. I went to my practice room. I went to the gym, got back home around midnight, and she wasn't home yet. And so I just back then pre-cell phone, you just kind of had to wait. And then
Right.
30 minutes later, I noticed there was a blinking answer machine in our bedroom. So I hit the button, and it was somebody calling from Northridge Hospital. And for me to call him back, I did. Gets around the phone, and after they kind of confirmed who I was and all that, I said, "What's going on? What happened? Is she okay?" And she said, "Well, Sherry was stabbed in the abdomen, and she's in surgery right now." I'm like, "What the hell?" And so I just got in the car, rolled down there. By the time I got there, the detectives were there. Apparently, what had happened is she had went to that. I don't know if it was it a I don't know if it was Bank of America or what it was at the time, on the corner of Woodman and Riverside here uh, in LA. I think that was the spot. Um, or are those parallel? Anyway, I'm zoning on our intersection. But the bottom line is she's at the ATM, and we don't really know what happened. She's pulling $40 out of there. The guy tried to rob her. We don't know if she resisted, but it was a single knife wound in the belly, and she was able to kind of crawl out to the sidewalk. Somebody saw her, ambulance, and there we were. And over the course of the next 24 hours, I just stayed at the hospital friends and family were coming and going. They weren't able to contain the bleeding, essentially. So they took her in for a second surgery about 24 hours after the fact, and she didn't make it through that one. So, it was, what do you say, man? It was my baby boy. It was her. It was a tremendous loss under these violent circumstances. They caught the guy a week later. It turned out he was like a career criminal kind of guy who had just been paroled maybe 6 months earlier. Somebody just wasn't ever able to get his life together. He eventually got like a life without parole situation in lieu of maybe getting the death penalty. I guess the family agreed, yeah, whatever, just keep him in jail.
Yeah.
But it was, that was quite a journey, obviously, to navigate. On the one hand, I think from all my years in rehab and all of the books and the spiritual evolution, I think I knew that one of my main jobs was about forgiveness. I couldn't carry around hatred for the guy, rage towards the guy. So I knew I needed to get there quickly, or I thought I needed to get there quickly in terms of trying to forgive the guy, let it go, move on, and all of that. But the big lesson for the first couple years there was also, honoring your rage and being able to express and let that have its voice, if you will, and that was maybe a little bit of a misstep. I had to, a few years later, go back and deal with, a lot of the residual.
That you had suppressed, you mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the suppression of the rage and whatnot. I didn't really know what I was doing. I thought I was, I was doing it was the Gandhi way,
Yeah, well, the high road, it was a high road. I mean,
Yes.
saying that, it was even you being quoted as saying that that you wanted people to forgive and, can't chase hate with hate. I mean,
yes.
dude, it's remarkable at the time. I could see you saying this now, but at the time,
Right.
you're still standing up and doing that. I could see how that would be swallowing anger as well. But what a mature thing to say at such a young age under the circumstances. It's remarkable.
Well, and it was a surreal moment, the way that all came together. They had caught the guy the night on a particular night. They called me and told me. They said, we're going to have a press conference the next day on site at the bank. Because it was all over the news, a big thing, all over the papers, the news, and all that.
Yeah.
So when they called to remind me, they go, you don't have to go. We just want you to know we're going to do it at 3:00 today, etc. And at first I said, okay, cool, thank you. And I said, I don't really feel like I need to be there. I had a friend of mine was over the house. I go, you know what, man, let's go. So we hopped in his truck and he took me over there. And we pulled up to the scene and it was already underway. And they had all the cluster of microphones and one of the detectives was there talking about how they apprehended the guy and whatnot. So I just kind of got out of the truck and started walking towards the cluster of mics. It turns out just as he was finishing up his comments. So as I was walking just to get a little bit closer, they all kind of stepped back and just gave a natural inroad for me to come up there and I guess talk. They didn't say I was going to, it just happened. And when I got up in front of the mics, that's just what came out of me. I thanked the police department for what they did. And I said, listen, as you mentioned, I said, Sherry was all about love and light. And I don't think she would want us to approach this guy. I think I said at the time, with a lynch mob mentality.
Right.
I think forgiveness would be the best representation of her spirit, et cetera, et cetera. So I meant what I said. And the way it came down, I can't argue that it was the right thing to say at the right time. However, it didn't mean that my work was done. It didn't mean that I had forgiven the guy, 1 week later,
Right.
And because, man, when I knew they had him in custody, man, I would just have like these fantasies, honestly, in my own thoughts of maybe I could go down to the police station, just kind of hang out inconspicuously and wait till they transfer him from one cell to another. And then just kind of out of the shadows, jump and just get my hand around this motherfucker's throat, man. And just, this is pre-taser. So
Yep.
They had the billy club, I'll let them just club me unconscious. And as I just, crush this guy's wind, I literally would, and I go, nope. That's not the way. Nope. We have, so but the truth is I should have just played that out in my mind and said, look, this is where I'm at. I got to, I'm not going to take action on it, but I'm going to,
right. Well, and that, again, that defines you versus the criminal who will take action on that, right? I mean,
Right,
that's just your personality, but still, has it changed your view of the justice system at all? I mean, you've watched a lot. I mean, hell, this is 1993. So you're talking about Rodney King times and all that.
Right.
So this is a rough time in LA already. So,
and speaking of which, it was days before the second Rodney King verdict was going to be announced. So a friend of mine kind of encouraged me, says, listen, if you get a chance, to anything you say publicly that promotes peace could be a good time for the city to hear it. Not that what I would say would, but that was in my consciousness at the time,
Yeah.
But listen, man, LAPD, man, they took the shit personally, man. We went home around midnight. We left the hospital, came back. The lead detective called at 7 a.m. the next morning, Bobby, we need to come by and look at, because we had no idea. They wanted to go look at some of her personal effects to see if they're looking for anything,
Yeah.
I go, it's 7 o'clock in the fucking morning. He goes, yes, sir. We need to begin. So they were like, and they, it was crazy. They used like a camera from across the street to, they did some incredible police work to find the guy, so
yeah,
kudos there,